Hey guys, how's it going? Aegis here, back with another YouTube video. So yesterday we discussed how ballista can be used in the modern meta in order to combat a lot of the charge builds in the game. Today we're going to be discussing how with dooley you can possibly do it with quite a few different items. We talked about this idea of scaling yesterday and how that can be used against some of the worse, or I guess lesser charger builds that haven't figured it out yet. In terms of, they may have the infinite loop of scaling or the infinite loop of charging on their items. However, they haven't figured out fully how to scale them in the best way. This build utilizes quite a few options that allow it to scale in order to combat those issues that dooley has faced. And this video, despite the way that it sounds, because I'm a little sick right now, this video is the most exciting video that I think, and one of the more exciting builds that I've been able to produce while recording since the little bit of time that I have been. Because I think the way that we combat the instant charging items is one of the more unique ways, I haven't seen it yet.
There are greater trainers than me.
We'll get into it a little bit, but I reference Crip's review video a lot in my previous video, and that's not going to be any different here. In Crip's review video, he says something interesting, and you'll see it come into play on the very last fight. One of the ways, and it's not the most reliable way, but one of the ways that you can, and I haven't discussed it yet, and we'll discuss it more when we get there. One of the ways that you can truly harm the infinite loop charging builds is by destroying their items. It's a lot less of a reliable way because you need to figure out how to do it before, if they do have an item that can scale, like a turtle shell or something, you need to destroy the right items before they're able to do that. However, item destruction is a little bit of a random way, but is a plausible way for you to beat some of these charging builds. So we get a little bit of item destruction. We have a very unique friend that shows up in this core, especially for this meta, especially for dealing with instant charging builds.
Good luck, both of you.
It seems like a friend that possibly shouldn't be able to work in this meta because it doesn't really work off of charge. Really, none of this build works off of charge, so it seems like it would be a considerable amount weaker than a lot of those builds. However, what this build does showcase is if you don't want to be an instant charge Andy, there are other options for you in this meta. And you can make scaling, as long as you can scale your items decently fast, as I've been trying to say, you can make scaling be one of your primary focuses in your build, and you can beat some of these instant charging builds. So yeah, we start out, get into the build. We just start out as a basic friend build. In the beginning of this one, I'm just trying to get as many friends as possible. I know for me on this day, it was kind of tough for me to find friends in general that I really wanted to use. So it's really, from this rank game was just me getting as many friends onto the board as I possibly could that looked competent enough early enough in order to possibly net a win or two. I'm just kind of picking up any friend for now, and I think that's an okay way to run friend core dooley in the beginning. For like the first 3 days, you want some type of win con or some type of death now, but if that's all you can get, that's all you can get. And here's the interesting friend. So we get a bulldozer. Bill's a very interesting friend because at silver, he gains 10 damage every time you use a friend and reduces friends' cooldowns by 10%. Every time you upgrade him, he reduces friends' cooldowns by another 10% and also gains another 10 damage every time you use a friend. So ultimately, while Bill may not charge, he truly is one of the more ultimate scalers and one of the better scalers for friend core than most of the other guys. As far as scaling. Now with that, you definitely want some other things with Bill. He's not going to scale, you know, he might win you a couple early fights, but he's not going to scale enough himself to be enough. And you'll see we pick up a couple other pieces to go along with Bill there. But other than that, truly Bill is decent in the meta if you can figure out how to make him work. There is a couple things that we do get this game that make it so that Bill's scaling really means a lot. And almost, you'll see by the end, allows us to infinitely scale with some of these full charge builds. But yeah. For now, it's just Bill and a couple other people. A Chris Knife and Hopper in. But yeah, Bill early, you can see how strong he is. He's very, very strong early. One of the best empowering weapons to get, I think. You win, like, if you get a bulldozer, even if you don't want to commit to it, you can win like 3-4 days possibly with just, you know, working off of Bill until you figure out the meta or whatever items you actually want to go. I personally like Bill, so when I do find him, I think he's an interesting item, so I like to try and keep him. He does reduce heavily the amount of friends that you can play, but his effect of lowering friends' cooldowns, especially in a meta in which we've all said it, Bonk, Chrono Barrier, and Fort are used a lot, it's really quite valuable. To have a friend that can reduce all the cooldowns of your other friends, and if you can work off of charge or haste, that just makes it even better. So right now we're just trying to figure out effective ways to give Bill as much damage as possible. We get the bomb squad that, again, I think I discussed this yesterday, but it charges more every time you upgrade it. So eventually at Diamond, bomb squad charges 4 seconds every time you use an adjacent item. The core procs a lot, Aiden procs a lot, so bomb squad charges a lot, and every time that happens, those three things are used, Bill gains damage. So from here, I'm debating whether I want the DJ robot or not, because I understand that if I were to get the DJ robot right now, technically I'd have some spaces to play the microbots. Microbots is a very interesting item. In this meta, it's a little bit weaker than it is in past metas, because if you upgrade the DJ with one of the upgrade options, it does not upgrade the microbots. You have to find another DJ. You have to find 2 other DJs in order to upgrade your microbots. And every time microbots are upgraded, they gain more damage off of a small friend. So you can see that the silver microbots have 15 damage based off of every small friend that I have, right? When you upgrade microbots, I think they up their damage by 15, so then it's 30 damage for every small friend that I have at gold, and then I'm pretty sure it's 45 at diamond. Microbots were actually, I had a couple decent microbot wins in some of the early Bazaar. However, microbots definitely an item that fell off and more of a mid-game item. In this meta where it's harder to just find the upgrades for microbots, it definitely becomes just more of a mid-game item that, you know, hopefully you get it to gold at some point and it carries you through a couple of matches. But with DJ Robot not upgrading the microbots themselves, when you get any type of level up upgrade, it makes it a little bit harder for them to run. So here we upgrade the core so that we have a little bit more haste, so that we're possibly proccing items more. We put in the rest of the microbots. Because like I said, I don't think microbots are bad. They're actually one of my favorite dooley friends. But you're not able to use them as effectively when it's harder to upgrade in metas where it's harder to upgrade DJ Robot, because microbots is one of those items that you continually want to scale as much as possible the damage that it gets from the small friends. So you want to get it to gold, you want to get it to diamond. It's one of those items. There's not every item in the bazaar is like that right now. There's a lot of items that do very minimal when you upgrade, but microbots is a big one if you want to keep it for the long term.
Bazaar is not kind to the weaponless.
So with the microbots rent out of the way, we get a couple more turns, I think, until the build really changes up. I think we kind of stick with microbots for a bit. Like I said, microbots build, it's a very decent way to start off the game. I think you have a fair amount of damage from both, but the biggest problem with it is you know that you're most likely going to have to pivot. A lot of people would feel like they have to pivot away from Bill. I didn't fully feel that. I knew that we're going to run into some instant charge stuff because this is way later than some of the other videos that I've posted. I knew that we were possibly going to run into some instant charge stuff, and we just lose this one by 12, which feels bad, but burn, man. I knew it was possibly going to run into some instant charge stuff, so it felt kind of bad to keep Bill. However, I knew that if I did anything else for right now, there wasn't really too much of a better option. And over the course of the game, I guess there's a couple better options, but I become so invested into Bill that it just becomes better to keep Bill.
Oh, Dooley, I'm
So the Brick Buddy was interesting there, but the realization with Brick Buddy is that it's not really that worth at bronze. Brick Buddy, anything over than bronze is decent if you find it later, but Brick Buddy at bronze, it's kind of a rough one to sell, especially when you have most of your other friends at bronze. It just doesn't gain enough shield. But yeah, this is basically the build at first. It's just decent damage with the microbots followed up with scaling damage from Bill. And then we move into a couple other things.
Oh sure, I can help you, but you have to.
But like I said, this just wins you a couple days right at the beginning. Just because of the weapon damage that you have, it's decent. A lot of the charge builds aren't fully online. They can't be, so you just do more damage to them early. And you're able to scale that way. So right now I'm just kind of looking for any other friend that can help me here. I know that I've played with microbots before at this point, so I know in my mind that there's going to be a point where I most likely need to pivot off of the microbots, and that's what I'm really looking for. We get the upgrade to Walter here, which I don't think I used too much over the course of the game. That's something that I have to get better at. I know how to set up, or I'm learning still how to set up some of the neutral fights to get Walter maximize Walter efficiency. However, I'm not the best at it and the best at remembering to use it, so two big things that I could definitely improve on. And you'll probably see throughout the course of this game that not every neutral fight I use Walter, even though probably should. That's something that, you know, I have to get better at, using Walter more. But yeah, it's just decently strong. You know, we lose that last fight to Burn on only 12 health, so it's not like I feel like I'm super duper weak. I just feel like, you know, we're gonna eventually have to find a pivot, but as long as we keep trying to upgrade the build in any type of way possible right now, we should be okay for the mid game. So later on, we run into a lot of the charge builds. And that's the place where we definitely need to upgrade microbots. The real reason why microbots are really tough in this meta, even if you could upgrade them, is that they're a 6-second item that doesn't gain any charge, or it gains haste from the core, but it gains no charge. And against something like marbles or any item that really can mass slow, microbots are really gonna suffer. And with so many pigs just running marbles because of how broken they are right now, I would like there's quite a few reasons why microbots are bad. But like I said, they can guarantee you, as long as you don't run into a fair amount of that stuff, they can guarantee you possibly a couple early wins. It's just something that you're gonna eventually have to pivot off of. So yeah, for the most part, we're just kind of trying to figure out what we want to do with putting in Walter here, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we actually decide to use Walter here. Take out one of the microbots and just see what he does. I don't move Walter over, if I remember this fight. I forget to move Walter, yeah, to the right, to the one space to the left. So it looks kind of goofy. Because Walter, of course, is supposed to be next to the core and next to Aiden, but I forget to move him one space to the right, so it looks stupid. However, at least I'm using it. That's the biggest thing. At times I don't use Walter. If your companion core, honestly any core, you can get your hand on 2 friends, you should use Walter because it's scaling. It may not be the most scaling, but any little bit helps in the Bazaar, definitely. So I should try and put Walter in the right space and focus more on that. But here we get upgrade a silver. So I was thinking about doing the microbots, but then I remember, oh yeah, if you upgrade DJ through this way, you don't get new microbots. So we just upgrade Bill. And now I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do, because this becomes a little awkward for me. Because now I'm like more committed to Bill than I thought I'd ever be throughout the course of this run. Originally, I don't think I wanted this to be a bulldozer build, and I think that's why that took me off guard. So you'll see like my next couple moves, I'm like, what exactly do I want to go for now? I don't really have a crazy amount of things in mind. I'm just trying to decide, like, in my head, I remember vividly thinking like, what's the play now? Are we doing this Bill thing? Are we about to sell Bill off if we get, you know, a ballista or something like that? Long story short, we do end up doing the Bill thing, and it does end up working out very interestingly at the end. But yeah, just overwhelming them with microbots, overwhelming them with Bill. Bill also scales more damage now, which is big because it's it's like the only way that we scale damage, which kills the enemy faster, right? So upgrading Bill was kind of needed there. I could have upgraded the core if I really wanted to pivot to something else. However, then we just do less damage. So if we really want to win these early fights, I think upgrading Bill was the right call there. We go up into another burn core. Burn core is probably the thing that we're the weakest against, if I had to remember. But Bill still does decent damage, and we get that burn core revenge. So we're kind of rolling now. We lost a couple early fights, which is okay. That's gonna happen from time to time, even if you feel like you have a stronger build. But overall, we're doing decently well. I think we're like 4-2. I feel pretty strong about the build. I don't feel like the build's too weak. I do feel kind of awkward with the Bill there, because like I said, I think I want to go something else, but I also do know that Bill isn't that bad to not make work. It was more of a question in my mind if I could make it work in companion core in the current meta because of all the charge items. And turns out with the right tools, you definitely can, which is awesome. Because Bill is an awesome item and is super fun to use. So yeah, there's a lot of low moments in the middle of this build. It really just is Bill microbots carrying us for a fair amount of wins because we're not running into marbles, because we're not running into a couple things. I think the first sight of marbles or something crazy, I possibly would have switched off the microbots, but we're not running into that type of stuff. So at least right now, so it's actually going decently well. We lose to the Lich. I don't think I've yet been able to beat the Lich. The Lich is really, really strong in this meta. I thought my build was good here. I thought possibly we had a chance. But with that second skill freeze that freezes your items for 2 seconds, there was no... It was already a long shot. And there was no shot after it actually came through. So I think that's for the core. Every time we... So that was righty tighty or righty loosey or whatever. The skill that slows one item for 1 second every time we use the core, which is pretty decent for us because we are, you know, companion core, or it's technically not when you use the core, it's when you use your rightmost item, and my rightmost item is the core, so it is the core for us. I gain the damage on Bill here, which is weird. I don't feel like I had too many better options to go for that hour, but also gaining the damage on an innate scaler is kind of weird because it's going to scale. You do increase the start at which it scales at, but it's about the meaningfulness of that. So like 10 damage, like Bill gains 20, you know what I mean, per friend that I use. So giving it 10 extra damage to start at is not the biggest deal in the world. But yeah, we're rolling now. I actually feel like, you know, these last fights give me more confidence in Bill and possibly, you know, using him to win the game instead of just using him as a temporary item. I could possibly even use Bill to actually win. We got a large item, seeing if possibly, since we have good gold, if he had an upgrade to Bill, but he gave us kinetic cannon and railgun. Kinetic cannon's one. Yeah, I mouse over kinetic cannon for a little bit and I stare at it because I was talking about it. So I'll tell you what I was saying to myself. Kinetic cannon's one of my favorite dooley items. It's not that good. I think railgun's possibly better, but it's my favorite dooley item because of the art. I really like the art on kinetic cannon. The fact that it's like a defense system on, like, for the Bazaar, and it's like scenic over this nice water, like this nice lake or whatever at night. I like the way that they drew that item at night. I actually don't like... I'm not a huge fan of railgun's art. It's kind of boring. It's like the Bazaar during the day with a railgun. I think that the other one looks so much cooler. So yeah, I was just kind of talking about that to myself. I remember there. Nothing important though. Nothing important to the build. So again, we put in Walter. I think we get a little bit better at it this time, but I'm super nervous because we're going into the Radiant Corsair. So it's like, put in Walter, but this is kind of greedy, right? Because we're going into a legendary monster with Walter out. It'd be better to have Bomb Squad out for the charge. But I feel like with Bill's, you know, scaling and that remaining consistent over the course of the fight, we could. But a big thing here becomes the anchor, because if the anchor crit right there, we would have died. So you always want to be careful of that, because the anchor actually has decent, because it's next to a telescope, has a decent ability to crit. It's a fair amount actually. I think it has like 30 or 40 crit, and it crits damn near half the time. So you want to be really, really careful of that. It doesn't crit us though, so we're good. Walter starts glitching out. We put him back in, and we're back to standard. Now here we're on day 7, so I definitely want to start to try and look for, and this is why I'm going into weapons. I want to look for something that I can take microbots out when we find missiles. I think that even with the nerf to missiles, making it, you know, 1 ammo, it's really not that much of a nerf, because there's a decent chance that you at least get some type of ammo gaining item, some type of munition, whether it be gunner, which we have here, or some type of ammo gaining, whether you get the item that you get from the loot items. I forget what that's called, a powdered flask or something, or no, powdered flask is the item. I forget what you get. It's like gunpowder or something like that you get from the loot items that increase 1 ammo or 2 ammo or 3 ammo depending on what rarity it is. I think with that as a possibility in this meta and it being decent, I think it's kind of worth. So I think golden crypto as well, that's something else I guess we can talk about since we're kind of the same build. Golden crypto I think is a little bugged. It says 0 to 10 on the tooltip. However, I'm pretty sure it sells for the next highest rarity. So you'll see that we sell this golden crypto for 14, even though on the tooltip it says that's 0 to 10. And what I suspect after that is that it's actually selling at a higher rarity. It's selling at gold, but it's still written as silver, which they should probably change that tooltip. Another thing that we find is actually insane. It's a hasted Brick Buddy. So I didn't want Brick Buddy before because it was at silver, but it was at bronze, but a silver one that's hasted is actually pretty decent. So we make a pivot to that. And I think that becomes one of the items that we're actually really satisfied with running. So yeah, earlier on it was just a lot of burn core dualies. Again, dually is one of those ones that you're not gonna have to. When you play dually, I feel like you play more or less the character that you're playing. So like, if you play dually, you get a lot of dually mirrors. If you play Vanessa, you get a fair amount of Vanessa mirrors. If you play Pig, you get a fair amount of mirrors. I feel like the game prioritizes mirrors. And a lot of these dually mirrors, I'm definitely not scared of. That's a big thing with your build, though. You never want to be afraid of the mirror match, because I do feel like over the course of your run, as I said before, you get more mirrors than anything else. So here I have to decide pretty hard between dunes and valley, and I decide to do valley because I understand that eventually we're going to go into some of these crazy builds that are able to infinitely charge. So having at least one item that infinitely charges how much it heals us is actually decent. And there's the golden crypto for 14. So I think it's a little bugged as far as the tooltip is concerned, but I think anytime you buy like crypto enchanted, especially if it's golden, I'm pretty sure all that means is that it sells of a higher tier. So that was a silver crypto that sold for gold value between 10 and 20. So here we get the Colt. And man, this was such an interesting option because I'm looking at missiles. Dude, this is the craziest thing in the world. I'm looking at missiles and I'm like, okay, this was actually kind of difficult. I'm looking at missiles and I'm like, we could turn missiles into deadly crit missiles, but it's minus 600 health. And I feel like at the time, and with everything that I have now, it isn't worth it. However, you'll see in the long term that, I definitely should have gotten missiles the crit. It was way worth the however much health it was. I think it was like 650. It was really worth that. And I don't realize that, and it's kind of annoying because eventually, I say it to myself in my head there, you may run into a skill that scales damage on your weapons. If you run into a skill that scales damage on your weapons, this turns from the dumbest choice to the most ingenious choice, and I had a feeling that I might. And lo and behold, you'll see it, I think even in either this turn or the next, you know what I mean? Something like that comes through, and I really wish I had a crit missiles there. I think about it a couple times throughout the course of this run. Think about it every night when I go to sleep. I should have gotten the crit on the missiles. But it is what it is. We keep rolling. Obsidian, Brick Buddy is actually doing insane work for us, just carrying. So it's not the biggest deal in the world. We put missiles back in. We always thought the biggest reason, and I want to defend my thought for a second, the biggest reason why I don't scale on missiles, at least the crit, or give it deadly crit, is because I don't think I'm going to scale it, I guess I should say. Like, I don't give it deadly crit because I don't feel exactly that I'm going to be scaling missiles. So yeah.
I feel like you're not being.
I was thinking possibly I should have gotten the metronome instead of Aiden. It could have been interesting because it directs our two sources of haste
I hope I'll be a good robot.
towards things that we definitely want to give it. So yeah. But we ended up not doing that. And now, like I said, in the same turn, we get firepower. When you use the core, adjacent items gain 20 damage. So now, we're definitely going to use firepower on missiles and Bill. Now it feels really bad. That's why I'm mousing over it for a while. It feels really bad. Because I'm ranting to myself about how I could have sacrificed the 600 health earlier, being at 3k, and had a deadly crit missiles that's now scaling damage over the course of the fight. But we're not there. We decided not to make that choice. And that choice kind of comes back to bite us.
You still there?
So we grab firepower either way
I
because
wrote it myself.
it's insane in this build, regardless of the crit missiles or not, but it would have been a lot better with the crit missiles. I think I gained the weapon damage here, which is interesting. I think it's mostly for missiles to start at higher weapon damage, which I do think is decent. However, the health could have been better. This guy's going in Ladle build with some instant chargers, so this is our first real challenge. We can only really slow one item, and that's the Aiden. That's the benefit of building mostly medium and large items in this meta, is there's a lot of small annoying items that do other things to small items. You just basically guarantee to avoid that with no small items. And I've seen builds be completely wrecked because they only have 3 small items, but they're never able to get off because they're slowed by marbles or whatnot, and it's just wrecks your whole chain of whatever you have going on. So I think at times, or honestly, in this meta, it's a little decent outside of the freeze builds to build some larger items. If you run into freeze builds, it's not going to feel decent because you're going to get frozen based off of your item size, and you're going to feel like you can't do anything. So it counters one thing, but it doesn't counter another. It helps to counter one thing, but it doesn't help to counter another. So yeah, here I feel like we're kind of good. I don't really fully know what I'm looking for anymore, because kind of scaling. We don't have anything that charges, so we're not an infinite charge build. But from day 9 onward, I'm pretty sure we go against mostly infinite charge builds. However, our scaling is ridiculous. I do feel like our scaling is really, really good with this build. So we just continue trying to operate off of the scaling. If you can't introduce an infinite charge, or you have to bend your legs over backwards to introduce infinite charge, sometimes it's just not worth it. Like I said, there are other ways to play the game right now. Just because at times especially in past metas, I felt like I had to play the game in one specific way, but that's not really what this game, is about, or a feature that it really has in general. It's more about being able to utilize your items in the most effective manner, consistently. Whether that's new items or older items that you have. So yeah, we're scaling now. feel like we're more powerful than ever. Of course, to pick on this guy, I feel really powerful. So I see the damage scaling on missiles. I see the damage scaling on Bill, and I'm really happy with it. Missiles ends up doing 400 damage with no crits that fight. You know what I mean? So it feels good. Firepower definitely feels good. Probably the best skill that we picked up. I just wish that we would have had the wherewithal to upgrade the missiles to deadly crit. But hindsight is 2020. That's why I'm being kind of hard on myself. You know, you never knew that you were gonna get firepower until you got it, right? I knew that was an option, but I didn't know that I was gonna get it this run. So here it's just mostly polishing up the build. Getting anything from any vendor that we can kind of polish up the build with. Maybe if there's one or two more interesting options at this point in the game, we can look into pivoting to that, but we're not really in a pivot mindset right now. Mostly in just like a let's get done what we gotta get done mindset. As far as the build feels like it's kind of there, so let's just kind of try and snowball it and make it, you know what I mean? Make it to 10 wins. We keep the chair. I always like to keep some of the curio items if I have extra gold. I like to keep, and extra bag space, I like to keep them just in case we do get a slow item or a slow enchant. You can increase that slowing by 1 or 2 seconds depending on what type of curio items that you have. There we have the chair, just in case we, you know what I mean, just in case we get a slowing item that we really want to use. We get a slow potion there, but I'm not using that. And this upgrade your leftmost item. It's either BILLT or the core. It's the core here. I could see myself doing BILLT as well, but we decided to do the core. I don't think either are really a bad option. I think possibly heading into our last couple days though, BILLT gaining 30 would have possibly been a better option. Regardless. We're up against Horseback, who's playing a, this is what I'm talking about, full instant charging build. I mean, he has Fort, he has Yo-Yo, he has Matchbox, and he has Pro. This guy is fully into, like, he is fully into the meta. Let's see how it does. I wasn't lying when I told you guys this build could combat instant charge builds. We'll see it here. He's instantly charging. He's even scaling. He's even got scaling introduced. But the sandstorm kicks in, and Bill is building damage. Our scaling is just better, and we absolutely destroy him in one Bill hit. One big Bill hit is all you need to destroy these damn chargers. And that was an egregious build. I mean, he had every single instantly charging item with Fort. With Fort. Like, look at this. I'm so glad I replayed this. Look at this. He has Yo-Yo, a shielded bushel, marbles, piggy matchbox, probe, and a jewelry box in order to proc his shielded bushel even more. And a fort. A restorative fort. A restorative fort. It's absolutely disgusting. Like, it's the most, like, he's using items every 2 seconds, but it just doesn't matter. Because, like I said, we have, the marbles are only slowing Aiden. The piggy matchbox is doing a very discerned and decent amount of damage. However, we're being healed by the bulldozer that's not getting slowed. Had he had any type of skill heal or slow, not skill heal, slow enchantment or slow skill, it would have gone way differently because we can't get our items off. But if they're just operating based off of the bare marbles and trying to break that, it's really just about not building so many small items and building some larger items, right? But yeah, those are the types of builds that I'm talking about when I talk about those infinitely charged builds and how to combat it, right? Like our scaling, that was the perfect fight to watch because our scaling is is good enough to combat it. Even though this guy is scaling with infinite charge, just building harder scaling, things that just scale harder, do more damage over the course of the fight, it will break that chain. Eventually, you will break them. It's just about a matter of time. So like I said, that's a little bit of the proof is in the pudding. You want to combat some of these infinitely, you know, charging builds, especially since a lot of times for them to be super duper effective, they need like their entire board to be diamond, which just isn't really possible in this meta unless you get extremely lucky. You can do that. You can easily do that with items that don't charge. You just have to have a big scaling mindset behind you. And here we get knife tricks, which is insane, because we already have, you know, cooldowns lowered, and we're using items really, really fast. So the fact that we're lowering cooldowns, you know, by 5% every time we use an item. Missile lowers by 10% because she uses twice. It's quite insane. It's a passive that I haven't seen a lot lately, but I'm definitely happy to have it in this iteration. So yeah, with that, we continue going up into a couple more chargy builds, a couple more really annoying chargy builds. Like I said, day 9, after day 9 it was going to be like that. A lot of times after day 9 in-game it's like that too. I mean, right now, you're just going to go up against these infinitely charging builds. You're going to have to figure out a way to either break them or interrupt them or do something to it. You have to you just can't sit there and try and play normally. Like, you can't sit there and not have any scaling or not have... You have to try and do something against it. Whether like I said, it's destroying items, whether it's doing more damage than they do, whether it's avoiding, you know, some type of slow skills, freezes, and whatnot. It's another dually fight, so it's a bit more honest. Dualies, like, every time you get a dually, you'll know to be, and you're one of those people that hate the instant charging items, you'll know to be a little bit more down to not as much, not as crazy as some of the charging builds can be. Because dually just doesn't have that option other than with one item, or a couple maybe. I think probe is one, and a couple other items that he can possibly pick up from neutrals, but innately in his kit, dually doesn't have any items in order to do this. So many dually mains or people are going for different options. Day 11, we're heading into our last thing, and Hattie makes the video. Hattie's a very interesting, so we can talk about this possibly for this turn until we get to the fight. Hattie's a very interesting event. It's a diamond tier event that was added last patch, so the New Year's patch, and basically has a bunch of options on this wheel. This gains a random enchantment, but it already gives the item the enchantment, which makes no sense. I think that for some of the options that Hattie gives you need to be reworked. For example, that one, gain a random enchantment, it should give you a random enchantment location so that you can enchant one of the items that you already have, not give you a random item that's already enchanted. That feels bad from a diamond tier vendor, right? So it's like it's very interesting, and spinning the wheel is really fun, and I don't even know what all of the options do. However, like, certain options I can already tell need to be a little reworked, like that one. But Hattie's a very fun experience. It's definitely a good event to have in the game, and it feels awesome getting him. I normally always go to him because of just I like, you know, trying my luck and trying to get something really cool. And again, I don't know what all the options do, nor do I really want to know. I want to find out by myself, by possibly getting all of them, so I know, you know, whether to be happy when I get an option or whether not to be. But yeah, it's just, yeah, that was awesome. That I forgot that Hattie made it into the video. It's a pretty cool event. It's a pretty cool event. It can definitely give you some pretty cool stuff, just because that time it gave me something that I didn't really like. In the past, I definitely have gotten some good stuff, and it's definitely an event that's worth it. It's worth to do your little spin to see what you can get. I think one of the worst things that you can get is probably gold or that, a random item that's enchanted. If it works into your build, fair enough, but if it doesn't, then you're just gaining the 4 gold. So, ultimately from Hattie, you want one of the other options, in my opinion, in this meta. Unless you're really struggling for gold in your build. But I mean, Hattie comes up so late, being a diamond tier vendor, that you shouldn't be struggling for gold. So get a gold tier friend, probably not the best option, it's just a Chris. Nothing crazy. We're just kind of padding the stats, doing what we can until the very end. I think we go gumballs here. Just to try and pad it up. Do what we can. But yeah, this is, you know, no charging. No infinite loops. Just good old-fashioned damage scaling. That I think is purely ethical in this game. It's probably one of the more ethical ways to build something. It's just outside of battle and inside of battle scaling damage in any way. Beating out a lot of the builds that are, you know, mobilytics type charge builds. You know, these guys who have downloaded the items that are really good at charging and trying to do that. And tomorrow we'll have a video that kind of showcases how to do that stuff right, as well as have a really interesting item in that video that I really want to talk about. But with this one here, I think that in this meta, winning with, you know, things like Brick Buddy, things like Bill, and you'll see in this last hour, we pick up something quite big. Oh, it's probably not this. I think I'd lose this combat, so it's not this day. The last hour of our last day, we pick up something really interesting, and here we upgrade Bill finally. We do get Bill to gold here, or to diamond here. So now he reduces everyone's cooldowns by 30%, and he gains 30 damage every time he uses a friend. Technically 40 with firepower. And Missiles gains 20 every time that she's used, because she's used ×2. But yeah, I haven't seen a build like this that's utilizing Bill in this way. That's utilizing missiles just as primary weapons in order to, you know, combat some of this stuff. And we lose against this guy. This guy has it way more intact. Like I said, you basically need your entire board diamond, and this guy's got that. Ah, he's got a gold ship. The worst thing that he has is the bushel. He has diamond marbles, diamond fort, diamond matchbox, gold ship. So it's like, yeah, against those builds, you know, if they really got lucky with their, and that's when you want to try and win as early as possible when you're scaling, because if they really get lucky and they're able to get a lot of upgrades over the course of the game, their small items and their medium items, they will truly charge infinitely, every single item. And that's really where it's dangerous. It's not about the infinite charge build, for example. It's when the infinite charge build can truly be an infinite charge build on every item. 1 or 2 items infinitely charging is easily compatible, but having 4 or 5, that's where it gets really, really tough. So here we get Aerodome. I'm just trying to look for something that's useful before a monster fight. I forget what we settle on. I don't think we get anything too crazy, but I have a bunch of gold, so I say I might as well roll until I find something that I want. I think I decide to go to the Mysterious Portal, and it's nothing crazy. It's Thieves Guild, so we fight Mr. Moo. Or do I grab everything from the vault? Nah, I think I just fight Mr. Moo. Yeah. The reason why a lot of people don't like grabbing everything from the vault. I think it's based off of what you need. Mr. Moo's great because he gives you 4 XP, and it's one of the only monsters in the game that gives you the day experience and 4 XP. That's what makes Mr. Moo overpowered. But if you really need gold, and you also have the possibility of getting an upgrade hammer from the vault, go for it. I think the Thieves Guild is such a good event because, of course, the 4 experience is awesome, but I think that you can kind of go for whatever you want and it not fully be a wrong answer. BlizzCon, however, in inverse, if I'm going to compare it to another event, feels like, yeah, every other option other than going for networking, because Deborah was so overpowered that she had to get removed from the game, and that's literally what that is, by the way. Networking is just Deborah. It makes it way more valuable, right, than everything else that's offered at the Bazaar Con. It's way more valuable than gaining 3 small items a lot of the time, unless you're like scaling off of small items with Pig. And it makes it way more valuable than getting a free diamond item. So it's not as balanced as the other one. So yeah, we're here, man. I think in this last day we just mostly focus on scaling. Again, scaling as much as we can, scaling our health, scaling our possibly finding another item to use. Small items really wasn't it. Maybe I should have just scaled my health at Julie's there. I do go to Barcoon. I was thinking about doing something else, but we end up going to Barcoon and getting Ballista, and I think that this is kind of a misnomer, because I do think I put the Ballista in. Yeah, I do. And this feels like it'd be strong, but it's really not that strong compared to the Brick Buddy. I sell off the Brick Buddy, which is definitely an interesting choice because it's hasted. But I know what I was thinking with the Brick Buddy because it's so late in the game. And it's only silver, even though it's hasted, it's not really fully worth it. Got DJ Robot there, you know what I mean? Call back to the microbots that we were so far removed from now. It's been about 20-30 minutes since we removed microbots, but hey, they're there. And yeah, we go into this one. I don't think that we do well into this one either. I think it's another... Yeah, it's just big damage with Shard of the District, which is insane. This guy absolutely one-shots me with the Shard, from what I remember. I don't even think I blast until then. Yeah, he just kills me with the Atlatl. So we move on from there, and now we're on last legs. It's kind of been rough, you know. The last 2 fights, it's been like instant death, either through charge or through, you know, the Atlatl type stuff in the Atlatl build. And when you're scaling from such a small place, like my weapons in the very beginning of fight don't do much, things like Atlatl really do hurt. Because in the beginning of battle, Atlatl does whatever it wants to do. It does its full effectiveness. However, I need time to get into it. I need time to get into it. However, for another however, I think that with that, you'll be good more times than not. And the reason why I say that, by the way, Colossal Popsicle back in the game, I think that was taken out for a period of time, or I just didn't see it for a long period of time. I think that when you're scaling your items, when you look at scaling, it does really well in this meta because you may lose against, you know, some of the people that are still running Atlatl or some of the people that are still running this, but at the end of the day, you'll do better because scaling items also need, I mean, charge items, the way that infinite charge items work, they also start really low and they have to scale their damage in order to use themselves at a high efficiency. So as long as you scale more than those infinitely charged builds, it should almost always be 10 wins because you're going to run into mostly guys running that with the one Atlatl user every here and there. And now we get MOMMA Sword. So this is what I was talking about before. In the very beginning of the video, you may remember, you know, me 40 minutes ago talking about how item destruction is also a very viable option and a very viable answer to the meta. And now we introduce it. on our final turn, I'm like, you know, everything hasn't really been working out. We know that missiles and Bill are decent. Let's see if we can get some item destruction in here. And maybe that'll work out. And Mama uses herself quite a bit. So she passed the test run against the cryo. So we move on. And we're like, you know, I think I'm sitting with Mama Sora and I'm like, I think I could rock this. So I think we finally do get a crit missiles. Or I do healing. I do a healing missile. Very smart. Again, more sustain. So if crit means that we can kill them faster. However, into some of these instant charge builds, if they scale long enough, it doesn't matter how much crit you have, you're not going to kill them. So you want to sustain with them. And, well, with that being said, we have one more option to make, but a pretty wild last fight is happening. Because I understand that if I'm going into any type of infinite build, especially infinite charge build, I'm going to have to be able to hang in with any type of scaling and healing and whatever I can have, right? And with restorative changing to be more retroactive, it's just way better now. You'll see that come into play. So it's the Wolf of Jump Street, and this is one of the most interesting fights that I'll have, that you'll probably have seen on this channel too. It took us a while to get here, but we are here. The Wolf of Jump Street. So we have item destruction, we have infinite scaling, and now we technically have lifesteal on both of our weapons that are scaling. Into this build, which is absolutely insane with the astrolabe, the fish, the shell, everything. I mean, you look at this and we lost, right? So that's what you think. So items start going off, we're destroying things. I really am pissed because I want Mama to destroy either the shell or the astrolabe, and she won't. She just doesn't eat the shell or the astrolabe for whatever reason, man. Only my Mama Sword. Only my Mama Sword. However, at this point in the battle, I'm like, wait, we haven't died yet. What's going on? I thought I'd be dead by now. But I look at my board, and as much as everything's slowed, their cooldowns are so low, and they're being hasted so much through their cooldowns that we're actually sustaining more. If you look at our health bar, it's not going down, it's going up from where it was, because of where all of our items were at. So I'm just praying right now. I'm like, if this is possible for me to sustain through all this, I want to sustain through all this. I didn't know that that was an option. However, we got into a really weird board state where this person can't do any damage to me, any more damage to me really, other than with Hotspot. So he's adding two burn to me every time he uses the astrolabe, which is insane. But it's not going to be enough damage to outscale how much I'm healing. I'm healing more than max health every time, or just as much as basically 2/3 of my max health every time Bill goes off. Bill's going off every 2 seconds, even slowed. My items are extremely slow. You can see it at the bottom: 17 seconds, 23 seconds, and 12 seconds. They're still going off because the exterior cooldown of them is so much lower because of Bill, because of the things that we've sold. It's insane. So yeah, I'm just hoping here that we hang on. I understand now, definitely looking at, you know, this guy's health and shield, there's no way that we're going to beat him. However, in the Bazaar, if you're able to outlast the sandstorm, it counts as a win. So that's what we're hoping for here. And our health starts jumping up and down, up and down, up and down. It's really nerve-wracking. I'm literally sitting here the entire time praying that dooley hangs on. And he does, man. He's hanging on. And that's it. Stalemate. We were able to sustain with item destruction at the end through all of that. I could not be more proud of a build. No charge. No use of the cheesy items. Nothing like that. Pure scaling. 600 and, or what is that? Yes, 633 2,534 damage on the bulldozer and 270,686 damage on missiles with 27,000 healing. It's insane. Their shield items shielded over 1 million. I mean, the amount of, when we say you have to go to the moon this meta, you truly have to go to the moon. And a bunch of crazy skills too. I don't know if Reel 'em In ever, you know, counts or happens. I'm pretty sure it possibly does, because I do think I dip below half for a little bit there, but then I heal. So I don't know exactly how that works. There's a lot of weird interactions happening on board. You know, knife tricks was huge for us. There's just so many things with this build. This the most exciting and most proud build that I've been able to post to the YouTube. Probably one of the longer YouTube videos too. So if you bared with me until this point, I appreciate it. But yeah, absolutely insane build. With a, you know, 2 lifesteal weapons that scale, and just trying to make it out with a bill and a missile dream, and it ends up working at the end of the day. So yeah, with that being said, scaling, very important. Item destruction, definitely a way that you can look at dealing with some of these charge builds. And overall, look towards figuring out a way to scale, keep yourself alive, and to not fall into the charge trap, because you can ultimately combat a lot of these charge builds if you understand how to truly scale in this game. And I hope with this video I demonstrated that if you understand how to scale your items, you can do it too. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.